Welcome. It is Wednesday. I am Christa Barone with Moksha Grace Coaching, and welcome to Moment of Presence. We are really glad that you're here today. I am really glad to be joined by my daughter, Christa Barone. She is my daughter, first and foremost, a cancer survivor, an amazing sister, a wonderful business associate and boss guru. Uh, uh, so we have a really important topic to share today. We haven't really talked a lot about it. We've kind of dipped into it a little bit, but never gone into the depth that we're going to start going into it. So that is why Christa is here. One moment can change everything is the topic today. And, we've briefly talked about our childhood cancer experience. And I say ours because guess what? Cancer affects the entire family.
Sure does.
Yeah, so we briefly talked about it, but today we're going to really dive in a bit more. I was on a podcast, Caregiver Chronicles, with Sarah Brown, and the link is in the comments below. So please make sure you
Will
check
be
it
in
out.
just a second.
It will be in just a second. It was a wonderful, amazing podcast. She does a great job. She is the mother of kids with a chronic illness, with autism, and it is really in support of the caregivers out there, professional caregivers and parents and spouses and anybody can be a caregiver. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to have Christa here. And
oh, we got a comment. Heart right back to you, Facebook user. Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this because you're right. It has been a really long time since we've talked about it. And actually, I have it in my notes that it's something I want to talk about of why we've sort of stopped talking about it. But I think it's going to be a really fun topic. We're going to try to keep it a little bit lighthearted, but cancer is always a little bit of a heavy topic, no matter how you present it. So do you want to take us through a moment of presence, a few deep breaths first? I'll post the links for the podcast, which, guys, I listened to it. It's amazing. Go check it out. I'm going to post the link in just a second. But why don't you take us away with moment of presence?
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And for those of you who are going to write in the comments and the questions, sometimes it tells us who you are, but sometimes it doesn't. So if we don't say your name, we're glad that you're here. So thank you for the hearts and the love. And please, during this topic, maybe you were there with us. You want to share something. Maybe you want to ask a question. Maybe you're a parent dealing with it now or a caregiver. So, speak up. That's what we're here for. So let's, for those of you who that are new to this, what we do is we take a moment to center, to bring ourselves into this moment. So what I like to do is we do 3 deep breaths. We are going to breathe in, and then we're going to hold it for 3 seconds, and then we're just going to kind of let the day out, okay? And we're going to do it 3 times. So a real big deep breath in, hold, and then exhale. And this time when you breathe in, just think about the day and everything that you want to let go of. Bring it in. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. And then we'll do it one more time. And this time I want you to exhale for 5. So bring it in for 3. Hold 3, 2, 1. And then a slow exhale of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. I hope that it always helps us. It always helps to center us. So for those of you that are new, I guess I should tell you why we're even here and what we do. So I'm Michelle, Moksha Grace Coaching, and I am a certified life coach specializing in emotional intelligence and life transitions. I coach clients on how to disarm their triggers, control their emotions, learn how to respond. Notice I said respond, not react, to situations to ensure that there are better outcomes, that they have more stable relationships, and it improves your lives. Because when your emotions aren't in control and you instead are in control of them, then it allows you to see things from different perspectives and make some really important shifts. So before we truly dive in, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with anybody that you know that would benefit from these discussions. They say every family is affected at some point in their life with cancer. It is a family diagnosis. It is not just one person. And family is who you say family is. And it can be very isolating. It can be very lonely, not just to the patient, but also to the family. And hopefully today there's going to be a lot that we say that's going to inspire, motivate, and change someone's life. And, I just made me think of something, back in the day when, as a parent, you tend to decide that you want to make some deals with whatever you believe in as far as religious or flavor of the divine. And one of my biggest deals that I made is that we would always be a light of hope, that we would always inspire. So I really feel that being here and Christa being here, it is really shining that light and saying, you got this. And if you need assistance, if you need help, if you need somebody to sit with you or advocate for you, there are resources, there are people out there. And so we'll go into that more throughout the conversation. So Christa.
Hey, how's it going?
You get us started.
Well, we should probably tell people what the heck we're talking about. So I've told this story many times, so I feel like every time I tell it, I always feel like I'm repeating myself. But when I was 3, I was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma. Now when people hear neuroblastoma, they assume it's something with the brain. It was not. I actually had a softball-sized tumor on my left adrenal gland, which, I'm a shorty now at only 4'9", but back when I was 3, I was much smaller, if you can imagine. So a softball-sized tumor is quite sizable, and it spread down into my abdomen and then down into my right leg. And when I was admitted, the doctors actually shared with you and my father and our family who was there at the time, that by the looks of it, their guesstimation was that I only had about a week to live. So you guys, by some absolute miracle, got me in right at the nick of time, because otherwise I may not be here today. But, some of the stories we tell today, we might hear that I think I'd be here no matter what. Because there were a lot of things that happened that most people probably maybe wouldn't be.
Right.
I'm blessed beyond measure to be here. But why don't you tell? So I was only 3 at the time. How did you know to bring me into the hospital or bring me to the doctor?
Well, way back when, way back when, it was intuition. It was my gut. It was going from a happy child to a child that wasn't happy and whining and not wanting to get dressed and not wanting to play and not wanting to do the things that you truly enjoyed. Yeah. Yes, she loved Barney. And so when those things started to happen, and then there were fevers, and I know that there's a lot of parents out there that can totally understand this. Your kid gets a fever, and so you don't call the doctor right away. You wait like a day. And then I would call the doctor, and then by the time we had an appointment, the fever would be gone, and they thought I was nuts. And this happened over and over a few, I want to say months, it felt like. And it got to the point where I ended up going for a second opinion because nobody was listening. I wasn't being heard.
Right.
And I know that I'm not the only one in this world who feels that they're not heard when they go to the doctor. And so I had to make the decision to leave the doctor that you had been with your entire life, all 3 years, and find somebody that would help us. And, God bless the old world, right? This is definitely a doctor. He had a one of those doctor bags, that you
Oh boy.
um, and he didn't need the tests. He pretty much knew, and of course he didn't tell me that until many years later,
Yeah.
but he pretty much knew exactly what was going on as soon as he saw you. I mean,
Which
you were,
is incredible because, well,
yeah.
maybe he didn't know neuroblastoma specifically, but even neuroblastoma was not really a thing back then. Like, it was very rare.
It was extremely rare, and it is a extreme.
Oh, I think okay, it was Michelle that was frozen, not me. Okay. Well, we were talking about the cancer experience, and I'll keep going till she pops on. And she was saying about the old school doctor, all that good stuff. It was definitely a life-changing experience. And I know she wanted to talk about the tone that we set right at the beginning when I was diagnosed. Obviously, everyone was very upset, and everyone was crying and all that comes with that. And my parents took everybody outside, my dad specifically, and said, "You need to go home. You need to cry it all out, get it all out of your system, and then come back with a fresh face, with lots of love, and assuming that everything is going to work out, and that she's going to be okay." This is basically a no negativity zone in Christa's hospital room. And that completely set the tone for the entire experience for everybody. It put it in the front of everybody's mind that when you come to Christa's hospital room, you are going to know that she's going to be all right, and you're going to bring fun and laughter and excitement and distraction. And that completely set my entire experience up to be extremely productive, and ended up being a very oh, she's joining me live. Come on in here.
Well, okay.
I was telling everybody about my dad setting the tone before, that everyone has to go home. Yeah, that everyone has to go home, cry it all out, and get it out of their system and come back in a better mindset and know that this is a zone of fun and laughter. And it was a life-changing experience, but in a weird way, now I can say, I wouldn't have said it years ago, but now I can say that I definitely wouldn't be who I am. You wouldn't be who you are. Our family wouldn't be who they all are if it wasn't for the experience that we went through. And ultimately, I wouldn't change a single thing. Oh, one moment can change everything is our topic, and I would not change a single thing.
Yeah, that was an important moment, and we hadn't talked before that. I was on the verge of, I couldn't move. I mean, I tell everyone it was like a burlap sack was put over my face. I don't even know how I remember to breathe. So when he said that, he said it not just for you, but he said it, I think, for him and I, and for Michael, because we had to be strong, and we couldn't be strong for everyone else. We had to be strong for us. And so when people came in and they were sad and, oh my God, and which, yeah, it's a cancer diagnosis. It freaks you out. But for us, it was like, let's put on our armor and let's go into battle. Yeah. And so we needed everybody to be there in that sense for that. And we lost some people. There were some people that didn't understand. There were some people that were scared to death. I mean, there's people that are like, oh my God, is it contagious? I mean, people don't know. And back in the day, cancer wasn't even as it is today, unfortunately. Yeah. And so,
well, in so many ways. I mean, there's so many things that, back in the day, well, neuroblastoma now, I mean, there was a commercial during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade last year. But when I was diagnosed, it was not something that was common. And childhood cancer itself, everyone was so focused on saving your life, which thank God, I mean, of course, absolutely. But there was no thought put into the long-term thing, situations. It was, well, you don't have to worry about that. Let's just focus on saving your life, which again, fantastic. And I'm so blessed and so grateful. But there are so many things that could have been considered that in some places are now, but aren't necessarily. And there's a lot of things that I wish would have been considered. For example, I had radiation as part of my protocol, and my right leg, it's not, super noticeable to others, but it's skinnier because of the muscle atrophy that happened from the radiation. And, I've been, 15 years I've been trying to build this muscle back up, and there hasn't been a lot of changes. And literally just the other day, I was doing some research on it, and there's no talk about what to do, but there's a ton of forums of people saying, we're completely left high and dry here. Nobody, once you get to a certain point, there's, it's not as important. You're done with treatment, you're healthy, you're in remission, you're cancer free. But then there's stuff that happens later, and no one really talks about it.
Well, and I think a big part of that is because it's like, it goes back, it's almost like this feeling of, well, you're lucky to be alive, so just be happy with what you have. And while true, from when you were diagnosed, and I'll never forget this, and if she's watching, she'll remember, there was a specific nurse Cheryl, and she came in because there was a party down in the playroom, and I was like, oh my God, I can't take my daughter. She's got this chemo hanging, and what if it spills? What if this? What if that? Like, I was just all full of the what ifs. And she picked you up and she said, we are going to the playroom. If you would like to join us, Christa and I will be having fun in the playroom. And she walked out with you.
Yeah.
She was also the one that said to me, do not let her get away with anything and everything, because, there's some spoiling that goes on. Oh, you want candy? Sure. You want this? Sure.
Yeah.
And she said, we'll save her, but you're going to take home a monster if you do not get a hold of some of the demands that a certain little 3-year-old was, saying. And it was fine. It was hard because, you've got your hair falling out, which, that was just an interesting experience as well.
Quick little anecdote to give you an idea of the type of 3-year-old childhood cancer patient I was. During the hair loss process, because that happens when you have chemo, I thought it was absolutely hilarious to just rip chunks out of my head and hand it to mommy dearest here. I thought it was hysterical. Yeah. She was, of course, traumatized by that. Sorry. But it gives you a little bit of a perspective of the type of patient I was. I thought that stuff was hilarious. I wanted to go, I'm sure, to the playroom parties.
Yeah.
And it didn't really faze me much. But that goes back to the tone that was set from very early on.
Well, and the tone carried into the professionals as well, because they were the ones, again, Miss Cheryl, that had me go and talk to a teenager that was there battling as well. And he was bald. And he walks up to me in like the nourishment room, you know, where you get your, where I used to keep
tea.
her popsicles and whatever, ice cream. And he was like, so I hear you have an issue with bald people. And I was mortified and so embarrassed. And he used to come and visit you, and he would sit there and he'd read to you. And he was so adorable, older, but just the sweetest, kindest, loving heart, and his family. And I think that helped me, because then I was like, okay, well, then I have to be that for other families. I have to be strong. I have to help them, you know, show them the path on how to be stronger, how to set the mindset, how to, you know, talk to the doctors.
I was going to say, and manage my care to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Well, to a big degree.
Because I never went home. That was my big promise to Christa, is that I would never leave and that I would be by her side. So, you know, if there were x-rays being taken, I was wearing the lead jacket, and I never left her side. I mean, there were a couple things that she'd, you know, fall asleep and then I would leave. And then I'd be back before she woke up. They always were good at making sure that happened so that I could keep my promise. And so that was really important to me. But those professionals, I mean, before that, I never felt comfortable talking to a doctor or even questioning. And there was at one point where I wanted the protocol. Christa was on a study. I wanted the protocol. I wanted to look at what the nurses and the doctors were looking at.
Which, real quick, I'm going to interject again, hold that thought. The thing that's also important to know is the protocol that I was on, it was an experimental trial.
Right.
So if you missed even by a few minutes, you couldn't proceed with the trial anymore. So by you getting a copy, you were able to be that second pair of eyes, because let's face it, doctors and nurses are dealing not just with one patient per person. They have multiple patients. And in any situation where you have people with their hands on something, you have to be prepared for a little bit of human error. It doesn't mean that they're bad at their job.
No.
It doesn't mean that there's a problem. But by you having a copy of that protocol is the reason that I was able to finish it.
And they were able to use what they learned from you to then help and you know, enhance that protocol. And I know that that's part of why they're now at such a higher rate of survival, is because of kids like you. There were, you know, being able to follow along gave me something to do, which was a good thing, because I was the one, you know, dusting the hospital room when they have people to do that. But I needed some normalcy. I needed to be given, I have no control over keeping my child healthy. I needed to feel like I had some ounce of control or some hand in what was happening. And so by giving me the protocol, which at that time was unheard of, I had to fight for it. I had to walk over to the doctor's office and talk to them and tell them why I wanted it. And it wasn't to call them out. It was just because I wanted to follow along. And so, lucky enough, one time I looked and I was like, it's been an awful long time. I really think that there's another bag of chemo that needed to be hung. And I hadn't seen the nurse. And unfortunately, there was a really sad situation going on. But I went to the nurse's station and I was like, hey, listen, I don't normally bother you guys, but this is really important. It looks to me like there needs to be another bag of chemo hung. And sure enough, they ended up having to reach out to the doctor, and they had to call the hospital that was in charge of the study in Chicago. And they had to say, like, listen, we're like 30 minutes late. And they were like, okay, but if it was after an hour, she would have been out. So and it was just it wasn't that the nurse made a mistake. It was how it was written. It could have been interpreted one way versus another way. And so luckily we figured that out.
And you felt powerful enough to ask a question.
And I felt comfortable enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the kind of, healthcare environment you want to be in, is that you want to feel like you're a partner in care over with your patient, whoever, no matter what age they are.
Right.
And, unfortunately with adults, they tend to, lock out the other adults because they think you can handle yourself. But I'm sorry, when you're sick and you're in the hospital, I don't care how old you are, you're still a child. When
it's
you're
not even
sick,
about being
you're a child.
It's not even about being a child. It's about you're not in your normal state of mind.
You're scared. You're scared. You're frightened. Sometimes you're confused. Hi, Sarah from Caregiver Chronicles.
Hey!
We are so glad that you're here, and loved spending time with you, and I can't wait to come back. And yeah, I mean, Sarah and I had a conversation about how hard it is when you're trying to talk about what's best for your child, because you know your child. Mm-hmm. You know your child more than anyone else, better than anyone else. We were at another hospital, and it was your stem cell transplant. You stopped talking. You refused to open your eyes. Like, you were laying there and you were pretending to be asleep, but you weren't. Yeah, normally you were dancing through chemo. But it had gotten to the point, it was one of the last hospital stays. We had been doing it now for 8 months, in and out of the hospital. And you stopped, and I knew.
You said you went out and you said to them, hey, I think something's off. They're like, no, it's fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then?
Well, which one are you talking about?
Oh, I was talking about when the machine wasn't turned on.
Oh, yeah, there was that. That was at the beginning of treatment. And so they were doing a stem cell, the pheresis machine, and they were doing the harvest. What happened was, it was somebody new, and they were learning, and they turned the pheresis machine on. They forgot that as they were draining her blood to clean it, to harvest the stem cells, to actually put more blood in. So, it was like a blood transfusion at the same time they're cleaning your blood so that you're getting blood. You're constantly getting blood. Mm-hmm. And so Christa ended up having a seizure on the table.
So it was basically like that scene in Land of the Lost with Will Ferrell, where the mosquito's sucking the blood out of his body and he loses all color in his face.
People are going to think we're crazy that this is funny, but
I'm
know what?
Sorry.
You have to laugh. One, because we know the outcome is okay. And we've never forgotten that you always should prime a machine before you use it, no matter what the machine is. And thankfully, my dad was there, and he was a paramedic, and he knew that when someone's seizing, and he could see what was happening, she was drained, to put her, upside down. I forget the name of the position. And that, because the residents were, the students were all kind of questioning, like, I don't know, what do we do? And so luckily they did that. And yeah. And
I'm here, and I'm tougher for it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what made me so smart. Maybe it wasn't the chemo. Maybe that was it.
There were times where, they would walk in and they would just be like, she's dancing and singing.
Are you sure you gave her that chemo?
Are you sure?
People normally are like way knocked out of it. No, she got it. She's just really into Barney today.
Well, and I think the other important thing for parents, for caregivers, any caregivers to remember is, I remember that when we first started, I remember somebody asking me, like, should we take pictures? Like, do you not want pictures taken? And I was like, this is her life. Like, this is part of her life. And we're not going to not take pictures, because then that seems like we're either trying to hide it, or we're not proud, or we always took pictures. It's not like we had a phone back then.
If I ever need to feel strong and confident, maybe I'm having a bad day, or I need to be reminded of how tough I am, I look at those pictures. I am so grateful for those pictures, because I look at them and I remember that 3-year-old that totally kicked ass.
Yeah. You did.
And I keep bringing this up, but it's so unbelievably important. No matter what diagnosis you have, no matter what situation it is, and really this is across the board, you guys set such a strong precedence from the beginning that I was not, my voice broke a little bit there. I was not a victim, that this was not something that was happening to me. It was just a situation that I was in. And that I cannot emphasize enough how much that set the tone for my entire life. Because even, part of the reason that I stopped telling my story was because I would tell people, and instead of being like, oh my God, heck yeah, like you're, that's awesome, good for you, like that's incredible. It was, oh, you poor thing. Aww. Oh my God, you've had such a hard life. I don't want that.
Yeah.
We live in completely different universes because I am not that person. I am a strong, powerful, then 3-year-old, but now a woman who survived something that kills so many people, unfortunately, and it's heartbreaking. But it's not something that I ever look at as something that I feel bad about or I feel pity for myself. And that has carried me through so many experiences where now I look at hard situations and I go, okay, this is a chance for me to be even cooler than I was before, even tougher than I was before. I've had leg surgeries and, different things with my teeth and all sorts of things. And every time that's happened, I'm even tougher now. I'm even cool. Oh, wow, I got through that? Heck yeah. Pain is something that's like, it's not fuels me, but it's not something that I ever look down upon.
Yeah.
And that, because so many people, no matter what the situation is, it is so easy to slip into a victim mindset. It is so easy to milk a situation and unfortunately run with it and have it dictate your future. And you guys didn't let me do that. There's always been nothing that I couldn't do, that I can't do. It's always been how strong and powerful I am.
Well, and I think that was something that was set in the very beginning when I would make sure that you got up.
Yep.
You got dressed. We would do the alphabet. We would practice tying your shoes. Whatever it was, we were doing because in our minds there was no doubt in our mind that you were going to be living and thriving, and so therefore we're not going to stop you living. And
we really knew the law of attraction back in the day. We didn't know that we knew it, but we knew it.
we really did. We absolutely manifested it. We manifested Ricky Martin tickets.
Heck yeah, we did.
We made
Make-A-Wish, Disney World,
Backstreet Boys. But these things just came to us. It wasn't like we asked. And we were always together. A matter of fact, every night your father and your brother would come after work, after school, and they would come to the hospital room and we would sit down. You would set the table because you had chores.
Of course.
And we would have dinner together, like every night, unless there was t-ball practice, but every night. Hi, Keith. Because I wanted to keep it as normal as possible. Like, this was just life. It might not have been at home, but for me, home was where my heart is, which was in that bed. And so, I decorated the walls. I brought your comforter in. We made a whole playroom. We made a playroom. I brought in a carpet so that she could sit on the floor and play. We made it our own. It was our experience. And I think that taking that ownership, that responsibility, being able to speak up, not leaving for huddles and rounds. Oh my God, bedside shift report always was such a battle back then.
And you go into that in Caregiver Chronicles.
Yeah, we talk about that in Caregiver Chronicles, more about how when I went into then working in healthcare, that was part of my, that was the philosophy that I represented and pushed forward with the help of so many other gurus before me. but because I experienced it, I lived it. And so that's why we both worked at the hospital. We both would visit families. We both would be there. If somebody, was in need, we were there. And it's just so important because there are people that will not want to be there. I remember one of the things, and this is definitely something for people to remember if you have caregivers in your life. Don't walk up to somebody and go, "Oh my God, I don't know how you're doing this."
Oh my God, please don't do that.
I don't know how you're doing it. You know what? I don't have a choice. No one asked me if I had a choice. I'm doing it because I'm a strong ass mom and because I'm not going to allow my daughter to, do it on her own. So that's one of the things that just used to drive me crazy. And I know that it was meant in the nicest way.
Of course.
But it's just something that when you hear it, you're like, I don't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, well, what can I do for you?
Don't ask.
I don't know.
Yeah,
just
don't
bring
ask.
bring me food, or like just spend time with me, but don't ask me. I have to make enough decisions. Don't ask me what else you can do.
Well, and you know what I did? I started, I did have a cell phone back then.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is I put on my voicemail, please check the website. I had it was caringbridge.com. And I would say, please check the website for updates before we talk, because I did not want to talk about it when we got on the phone. I wanted to hear something normal. Like, tell me how T-ball practice was. Tell me, what's going on. Yeah, the latest gossip. Like, I did not want to talk about cancer. I talked about it all day. I lived it. And so I would have people go to the webpage that I would update every single day. And it would say, what your scores were, if we could get visitors, if we couldn't get visitors, what kind of mood you were in, funny anecdotes, things that you would do or say. And so it was good. And now we have that journal. We have that, which is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, we just read back through it a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And
cried.
But also there were some things that we went, I like, for me personally, I was like, I don't remember ever hearing that part of the story before. Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that happens in these situations. Like you said, should we take pictures? Should we document this? Should we write stuff down? Yes.
It's
right
part
now,
of life.
Well, right now it's hard and it's sad and it's difficult. But in 15, 20, 30 years, you're going to wish that you did that.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to, we both worked at the hospital, and I did stuff with the hospital on both the pediatric and the adult side.
Mm-hmm.
And something that's really not talked enough about is the stark contrast between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that for me as a childhood cancer survivor, being a patient in both worlds was very jarring.
Yeah.
In the pediatrics world, not only do they allow, we hate that word, but allow your family with you, but in the adult world, they can be very dismissive, and that was very hard for me to experience. I had a procedure done, and not only did I not get the, when you're a pediatric, you get like you get Versed before you get wheeled back. So it makes you loopy and you don't remember, although I have memories. But anyways, they don't do that in the adult world. So shock number one was, remembering the entire wheeling back to the surgical room. But complete shock number two was the anesthesiologist coming over and getting ready to inject something into my IV. And I asked him, "What are you about to give me?" And the response that I got was, "Don't worry about it." Very condescending, very just, not what you want before you're about to get put under anesthesia. And the very first thing, I think the minute my eyes opened, I turned and looked at you and went, "You will not believe what just happened."
And I believe at that point you said you have some more work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you told me I had a lot more work to do at the hospital to help bring things along. Because when you ask questions, you shouldn't be dismissed. It's like, the biggest argument that we used to hear a lot with like bedside shift report.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to take more time. And in reality,
they've done studies.
They did studies. And as a mom, as a patient, when you hear one nurse giving the other nurse the information, you now, one, get a lot of your questions answered, and two, you now know that the information has been transmitted and shared, and so then you don't have to go into it and go, oh well, and so we do it this way, and we do this way. One of the things that I did, I don't know if I was loved as much at the hospital as a parent or not. Maybe they wrote on the chart like, oh boy, here she comes. I would say to them, like, don't wake her up to weigh her and then come back and take her blood pressure and then come back and do something. When she gets up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, which she would, just leave the scale. The scale's right here. I'll weigh her. I'll write it up on the board, and I'll keep track of that stuff for you. Mm-hmm. So that way she could get rest, because patients need rest in order to heal. What? And so, yes, so it was a collaboration, because I knew that they had a job to do.
Right.
You have a job. You have to get these, blood pressures, and you have to get, the weight, and you have to get this, and you have to get that. And I get all that, but allow the family to help. Mm-hmm. So the patient, do what's best for the patient, right? Not because you have to document. So that was a shift.
I said this earlier. I mean, listen, I'm in operations. My job is to make sure that things flow easily, systems talk to each other, things are done correctly, things are organized. I cannot stress enough how much human error happens. It's natural. It's just the way things are. And there's a lot of things that I automate for people and companies so that they don't have to have their hand on it, because human error happens. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that there's a problem. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong, but there's some things that you cannot automate, that you cannot put on a computer to do. And that means that if you're there being the caregiver for whoever the patient is, or you're a patient who's paying attention during those shift changes, or whatever it is, they're humans. They're people. They make mistakes.
They have bad days before they get there.
I've witnessed myself, a friend of mine who said she was giving birth and she needed a certain type of pain reliever. Oh, yeah, that's what we have. They brought her the wrong thing. She said, well, but I need this. Yeah, that's what it is. But it's not. Mm-hmm. And they looked at the chart. Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. Let me change that out. I did the wrong thing. It's human. It happens. Right. But that's why it's so important. If you are the patient and you can't do that for yourself, and you are blessed to have someone that can, have them there with you. And if you're that person for somebody else, it's not a job that you're necessarily going to get a lot of thank yous for, at least at the time, but it is so important. And it is very likely that you could completely be the make or break in the situation.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. Because again, humans are humans, and it doesn't make them wrong, or it doesn't mean that there's a problem. But you're important and you're valued.
And the professionals, the professional healthcare, caregivers that are out there that are watching, when you see family at the bedside, just involve them, train them to do some simple things, because one, they need it. They need to feel like they're doing something, and utilize it to help you. I remember they would give you chemo, they would hang it. They had other patients. They couldn't stand there the whole time. I would track minutes by minute. If you had a rash that came out, I knew that it happened 5 minutes in or 7 minutes in. And so that way, when it was hung the next time, we knew what to expect. We knew, okay, well then give the Benadryl 30 minutes before instead of waiting until it happens. We knew that you would throw up and that would happen. But I had it down to the minute because I was there.
This makes so much sense for why I do that stuff now. I'm such a tracker. I love, yeah. It's so funny.
You do.
I don't know who just commented. about the
oh boy,
getting overdosed on medication because they didn't talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel your pain, and that is, I'm so sorry that you went through that. I definitely, I've been overdosed on a few different things before. It is never a fun experience. I know that I'm sort of chuckling, but it's because it's such a, oh, Tiff, hi. I feel you, girl, because I have been there, and it is not fun. And that's exactly, I mean, human error, or just there's the medical profession is so underemployed, unfortunately, because of everything that we just went through, and
overworked and overstressed and exhausted. Oh, and don't put your water at the desk.
Right.
So you shouldn't stay hydrated, and you certainly can't go to the bathroom.
But this isn't a rant on the medical field. We could talk about that on a whole other episode.
That was for my friends, the nurses and the CNAs and the people
you all are amazing and wonderful,
are constantly running.
The point of this is that we understand how overworked and overtired you are, and as much as we can advocate for people to take an active role in their healthcare, we would absolutely encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah, and as our parents get older, just say, yeah, I know exactly, JC, love them. You guys don't need to hydrate. What was I going to say? Note taking. When a doctor comes into the room, or you're doing huddle or whatever, and the doctor's talking to you, you're not going to remember what is said.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody in the room with you that is writing down and taking notes. Because if you don't, I had neuroblastoma written on my hand, I think for 3 days. And I would go to the nurse's station. I go, what did they say it was again? I'm so sorry. What did they say again?
Yeah.
How do I figure out her A and C? Like, they had to give me a math lesson several days in a row, just to help me understand the formula of having to figure it all out, because it's all new to you. It's not something you really want to learn.
And I learned that, I mean, being in the world so long myself, I know that like, if I'm at the doctor, if there's anything we need to talk about that's beyond just a normal, like, wellness visit, I'm going to black out and completely forget. It could be this, not even anything worth mentioning. I'm going to completely black out and not remember anything. And guess what, everybody? We have these handy devices called smartphones. You are absolutely allowed to ask the nurses and doctors, hey, do you mind if I record this so I can listen back later? I'm afraid I'm not going to remember it. And most of the time, they're probably going to say yes.
It's just that we don't think to ask.
Exactly. Or we're afraid to. We don't feel comfortable to. We think that we're going to offend them somehow. You need to be able to know what is going on with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to stand up for yourself. And if you can't, if you're in a situation where you can't, then you need to have somebody with you that will.
Absolutely.
And that's the important part. And you need to ask for what you need. I mean, there were times with you, I would know, like the time of the stem cell, and you weren't talking, and I knew that medically you didn't need to be there. They were just monitoring you to make sure that your blood levels didn't go too low. But I knew that we could make it home in 3 hours, because we were not in, we had been in Hollywood, but we were on the West Coast. I knew we'd be home in 3 hours. I knew that if we needed blood, if we needed anything, I could get her to the hospital in like 2 minutes. We were only a mile away. And so they really put up a fight. And I said, I have to get her out of here. I have to get her back home to her father, to her brother, to her own room. And I signed you out against medical advice.
Thank goodness.
That was a scary moment to sign that form, but I did it because I knew, again, following my intuition, I knew I had to get you out of there. And of course, 30 minutes into the drive, you were singing Barney, and
of course
asking
because
for
why?
And
mindset is everything.
Mindset.
Hey, I feel like we could keep talking about this for I don't even know how long.
Well, we came up with an idea.
Yeah.
So for Moment of Presence, 3, if we're doing weekly, once a month, we are going to talk about healthcare and healthcare advocacy, and what's happening. So once a month, we're going to have a healthcare discussion, and you are going to be with me for those conversations.
Beautiful.
So that's something new that we're going to be doing. Definitely check out the Caregiver Chronicles with Sarah Brown. I don't know if Sarah's still with us. She has those beautiful boys that she takes care of, but definitely go over there and check her out. If you have, or your family, anybody in your family is dealing with a chronic illness and you are a caregiver, it's not just pediatrics, that she has special guests on the show all the time talking about these issues. Go on over there and support Sarah. She's doing some amazing things. I'm going to be back on, and I think you're going to be doing a podcast with her. So that'll be really cool.
And I'm going to jump in and say, if you have not already joined the Facebook group, please do that. I'm having a ton of fun with the challenge that you're doing this month.
28-day self-love challenge.
I'm having a blast doing all of my challenges. You guys definitely need to get in there. So mokshagrace.com/group.
Yes. And the other day I surprised everybody and I went live in the chat, and we were having, conversations and just supporting each other. And so it was interactive. It was a lot of fun. I plan on doing more kind of pop-ins like that. But it's a really good community. And for God's sakes, we're at 98 members. By March 1st, I want to be at 100, for God's sakes.
Well, and if you are going through cancer treatment, you're a cancer survivor, you're a caregiver, and that could be a caregiver for anyone. You're a caregiver for basically all the parents of the family. Join the group. Yeah. You can get support, ask questions, get some advice. But that way we have somewhere where you can reach Michelle more directly.
Yes, absolutely. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people that that could use some of the information or just some of the laughs and giggles. Just seeing that it doesn't always have to be negative, that it can be positive. It's all what you make of it. And as I always say at the end, we all have choices. And when you wake up every morning, you get to decide, is it going to be a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? Choose wisely and make it happen. So we will see you next week at 5:30 for a moment of presence.
You'll see them next week at 5:30.
I will see them. And those of you that are doing the 28-day challenge, I believe it is day 9 today. So I better decide what I'm going to do if I haven't done it already. I think I have. But we'll see you over there. And, listen, thanks for letting me come in and barge in on your office since I've had an electric outage.
That's okay.
It's all chaos.
I kind of rambled for a few minutes there. It's all good.
I'm sure you
have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.